It's I, Whimsy, and this is the Friday night edition, the adult edition of the Oracle of Whimsy. So I hope everyone is doing great out there. I'm having a good time. Thank you. I am not wearing my glasses because they cause a shine and because, gosh darn it, you're worth it. So, hello. Let's have some fun. Okay, let's talk about tonight's remote viewings. So there's a couple of things I want to talk about tonight based on some of the previous remote viewings we've done in the past, because it's kind of like a story, and we want to bring you all the way to the story, where it came from, where it's headed, and where we think it's most likely going, based on using the ancient primordial technique of something called heart-centered remote viewing. It's something that we teach here on the channel. We try to keep it very inexpensive, but heart-centered remote viewing is based on sensation technique, where we put ourselves in the shoes of the target, what it is we're attempting to get information from, and then we try to connect with sensations in our bodies as we do so, pick up images, etc. So let's talk. One of the first things I want to talk about has to do with the seizing of boats. We know from previous remote viewings that when we put ourselves in the skin of Robert Mueller, when we put ourselves in the shoes of Robert Mueller, he felt stuck. I felt, because I become one with the target, I felt trapped on land. And the card that I was looking at when I got propelled into that image was the Three of Wands. Now we know that the cards have a traditional meaning, and the traditional meaning can take you to interesting places. For example, Three of Wands, your ship will come in. Three of Wands, you'll get your wish. This was the outcome for Robert Mueller. My feet were like lead, and I couldn't get off the land, and I couldn't get onto those boats that I saw in the distance in that picture. And when I targeted, when I made the target the boat, and I locked on target and went into the boat, they were operating like independent cities, and meetings were taking place, decisions were being made regarding international governments and their policies regarding the United States, wheeling and dealing. There were no interest loans being given by foreign governments to people of interest. So we'll give you as much money as you want, and you can pay it whenever. So we have no interest loans going out to people of interest by foreign banks, not just Russia. We also have these private meetings taking place off of federal lands in international waters, where theoretically certain meetings are taking place that are possibly being recorded, documented, etc. And Robert Mueller can't get on the boats, so he has some idea of what's taking place on those meetings, who's in the travel logs. So now it's just come out that one of the boats, I believe it was the one in Italy that they think is owned by Putin, that every member who was working on the crew, when they had checked the list a couple of days ago, they had switched the crew. So the new crew on the Putin mega yacht is MI6 agents, which I thought was pretty funny. I put a link in the comments section. So yeah, every single crew member was an MI6 agent. So what they're doing is they're scrubbing these mega yachts to find access to information, recordings, tapings, documents, etc. Right, which is what Mueller had wanted. So it's following the money. So that's the first thing that takes us from where we've been to what he was saying to the vision from the picture, the Three of Wands. You can Google, take an image of the Three of Wands and why it took me there and where we're headed, based on what Mueller said. Sooner or later, you're going to be mine, right? This will follow a domino effect because he jokingly said, a G-man always gets his man, right? That they were methodically going to stay on this until they got on those boats, got those documents, it's just amazing how long it takes, and what these folks are doing in these agencies. It's rather incredible. But anyway, so that was the first thing I wanted to talk about tonight. The second thing I wanted to talk about had to do with Putin himself and the fact that we're now looking at potentially him purging his own people. You remember when we had talked last week, I had done a profile on Putin, and I found myself where I had to blame somebody, right? So that was where I went into this remote where I knew that I was going to start purging people. The other thing about this purge is that, if you recall a couple weeks ago, when I was putting myself into Putin's shoes, I felt paranoia. A paranoia, like people were trying to poison me. People are trying to poison me, now it's coming out. He's worried that people are going to try and poison him. But specifically, I was worried about my own spies. And I thought that was rather interesting. The other thing that's coming out is that I had talked about corruption in terms of mismanagement and misappropriation of funds in Moscow, which had led to devastating underspending in the military, misappropriation of military spending, etc. Misappropriation of spending in the budget for the military. They hadn't upgraded the military very much since World War II. That sort of thing came out because people had been stealing money. The other thing that's going to start to come out with the war in Ukraine is that there are saboteurs. So one of the other things that Putin is paranoid about is he's paranoid that there are people from inside his intelligence agencies, inside his military, that are working with the Americans. So if you're just looking at how much intelligence the United States has, and who supplies intelligence? Well, the Americans have their intelligence, the Israelis have their intelligence, and the Israelis have Russian spies deep in the Kremlin, because the Israelis supply security for the entire world. That's what they do for a living. They supply intelligence. The other thing is that they have hundreds of thousands of Russian-speaking people, some of whom are refuseniks, people that were denied the right to leave Russia because they were former FSB, or people who had worked in intelligence or had had high-profile jobs that prevented them from leaving Russia. So now they're in Israel, working either for private companies in Israel. Private companies do this, or they're working actually for the Israelis themselves. So you have all these spy agencies coming in and assisting Ukraine right now. When you put yourself into Zelensky's energy, it does feel as if you are in a bubble of protection to some extent. And I think part of that is because he has so much protection. The Israelis, possibly NATO as well, it's created a kind of dome of protection around him, which has allowed him to relax a little bit, which was necessary for him to do his work. The main thing I would take away, though, with Putin is that he's paranoid. He feels that the military is giving information to the Americans, which is why we have so much information about the goings-on. But more than that, one of the reasons why the Ukrainian military has been so successful is because there are Russians actively cooperating with Ukraine in order to sabotage the Russian offensive. And so what's starting to happen is that people from within Russia, from within the military, are sabotaging, assisting the Ukrainians, and probably also tipping off Ukrainians about where supply ships are, etc., which of course makes their job a lot easier. All right, everybody, thank you for watching this video of remotes with Whimsy. Be sure and share, like, subscribe, and be sure and also, if you can, support the Patreon. I really appreciate it. If you're trying to get in for a reading with me, you can find the bookings information below. And I also offer $20 quick readings as well. So hopefully you can find that information below as well. Take care. Bye-bye.